Welcome to this week's edition of the Stop Doing Stupid Stuff podcast. Today, hosts Andreas Wieman and Tim Keefe explore the complexities and opportunities of this vibrant region, renowned for its dynamic markets and intricate challenges. Joining the conversation are two esteemed guests, Marina Teopisto, an expert affiliate from Sao Paulo, and João Paulo Braga, a seasoned businessman and consultant. Tune in for an enlightening session that promises not only to educate but also to inspire strategic thinking in dealing with the unpredictable yet rewarding Latin American market. Let's begin.
Hey everybody, welcome to another exciting edition of the Stop Doing Stupid Stuff podcast with me and my less famous friend Tim Keith, who chimes in every once in a while, as you can listen to past podcasts there. But hey, we had an exciting topic today about the Latin American market. And hey, Tim, do you want to tee up our special guest?
Yeah, thanks, Andreas. Very excited today to have two wonderful people that we've been working with or known for a while. Marina Teopisto is our affiliate in Sao Paulo, and I know I just trashed her family name, and I'm going to hear about it here in a minute. But Marina has been working with us for a year, and been very exciting to see some of the projects that we've had an opportunity to work on together, and some very interesting companies that wouldn't have been on our radar, actually. So Marina, it comes with a tremendous amount of experience, both on the process reengineering side, as well as her ability. And I think this is, Marina, one of your great strengths, I think, is your cultural orientation to the client and the way you interact with the client to create solutions, which I found to be really, really exciting. And so Marina plays a big role in our company, not just as a localized affiliate in a market, but she's really part of our overall leadership team in terms of our go-to-market and our messaging strategy. I would also like to introduce today João Paulo Braga, who I've known since 2017. João Paulo is a very, very experienced businessman and consultant in the market and a good friend. And I'd asked him to join today and offer some of his opinions of what's going on in the market. And so with that, let me just toss out the opening question. And it's to both of you. And there's no order here, but like if you were to think about what would be the one word or the short sentence that would describe the market as you interact with customers, what do you think it would be?
One word to describe that.
It could be, you know what I mean. I'm just kind of like, is it optimism? Is it dismay? Is it investment? Is it growth? No, I'm kind of leading the witness here, but.
Yeah, I think when we are talking about, especially about Latin America, optimism is something that we are always looking for, but the way that we are structured, there's a lot of not being sure of if it's going to happen soon or later. So I think the companies are navigating this kind of looking for a new era that is going to be like of growth, but they are always looking back to see if there is going to be any problems, especially on the political side. So I think this is the way that the companies are looking right now. But
if I can run it back from my perspective, is that people want to be optimistic, but the history tells them that sometimes maybe they have to, be safe, or there's a tendency to look over their shoulder a little bit because things can change very quickly for reasons that aren't very obvious. Like from an economic perspective is one thing, but political is very interesting, right? Because you can have a political party like we've had here in the U.S. make some pretty core decisions that can radically change what business can and can't do.
Yeah, I think if it's one word, we could tell it's uncertainty.
Okay, that's a good one.
Yeah. To João Paulo's point, we have the political scenario that is struggling. We have the international investors that are struggling But at the same time, we do have growing community of, because with the new government, we have had some growth in some areas. I'm not saying all parts, but we have had some. So we cannot be optimistic and say that it's all about growth, because as in Brazil, we like the rest of the world, we are struggling with the half and a half conservatives against liberals and against whatever. So we do have that tendency to take one step forward and 2 steps back. So we do try follow on with that.
Yeah, and in the companies in this, in the meantime, they are in the middle of this uncertainty. But the thing is, what should be the practical answer, the most of the answers of the companies on this kind of scenarios, they wait for investment. And the thing is that the cost of doing nothing, of the cost of waiting, much of the times is higher. So they are not growing once they are not doing the projects, but this is cost them like market share and all that other results that the investment could bring. So I think this is the companies are more selective when they are looking for projects, but the companies that are investing in the right projects are taking benefits of the ones that are just waiting to find the right moment, the right scenario that would be political, economic, global, and everything else, and that's maybe never going to happen.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting point. I know, Andreas, you had a question you wanted to throw in.
Yeah, no, I was thinking about just the conversation and comments Marina was making and Jean Paulo was making. I mean, kind of what they're also saying for Latin America is the same thing you and I've been talking about, just from a global perspective that we're seeing. It's a complicated environment. The complexities and variables that we're facing right now are just something that none of us in the world have ever faced. And I think, I'm seeing in the US, I'm going to talk US, that's kind of my area, has the most level of familiarity, right? So in the CX consultancy work that I do, a lot of companies right now have a pretty financially bleak outlook. And they were able to make choices in prior years and not have the same things that Jean Paulo was just talking about, where they could make a decision, and if it was a bad decision, they could manage through it and be okay. That's not the case now. A lot of companies, you make a wrong decision now, and that could be it for your company. So that's where I think that conservatism kind of kicks in, right? And so what I'm seeing in the US is you have companies who do not have good marketing outlooks, regardless of what the industry is. No one is coming to me saying, "Hey, I got all this capital I can spend. What are your crazy ideas, Chris?" No, they're like, "Oh my gosh, I gotta cut 25% from my budget, and I still got to make this number. How do we do that?" And what I'm starting to see now is, and again, not getting into any, trust me, nobody wants to hear my political ideology in U.S. politics anyways, but what I'm seeing is the CX oriented businesses that we're in, and a lot of them, there's a lot of that, right? It's not just contact centers, it's retail, it's hospitality, it's all of those that are customer facing. What I'm seeing is it's a much more complex environment, and the requirements to successfully handle the situations that are occurring right now, because technology is getting a little bit better and handling simpler interactions. So it's leaving more complex interactions. So you need a higher skilled individual. You don't have access to them because the people, the companies, and the number of labor units they need, they can't pay that salary and still be a for-profit business, right? And so what do? They have the same old tired training that they use for years and years and years, and they're giving that to less skilled people that they really should be giving and enabling skill up training on, so they can handle the complex interactions that they're seeing there. We're not seeing that in the US. I think that's kind of objectively speaking, that's pretty clear. So what a lot of companies are doing to save money from a US dollar perspective, they're going to Mexico, they're going to Colombia, they're going to Brazil. I mean, seeing a lot of Portuguese companies, that doesn't make sense. Companies from Portugal that are actually going to Brazil and outsourcing Portugal volume to Brazil, because the folks that are there, they have that skill set. So even with the shoddy training that's being passed on, you have a higher skill set that now you can afford to pay there and have an equitable outcome to the customer experience and the interaction. So that's where I think some of the volume or opportunities is coming in. But to João Paulo's point, it's all kind of coming in a new angle with new technology and new sophisticated problems that companies are trying to solve with kind of antiquated, not modernized tools or training. And so they're having to deal with all of that, looking at it from an American company standpoint of more labor arbitrage only. So it's complex, but there is, like, I think, a path forward. And like Marina, João Paulo, that's the kind of thinking that we need, that you guys bring to the table to help companies be successful with that. That was like a 10-minute spiel there. So I'm going to pause and go on mute for like the rest of the podcast.
I think that's, I think,
and I think that,
oh, go ahead, Marina.
I think to João's point and to Andrea's point, yes, it is a global thing that we are going through. The complexity that we are going, it's global. And for what João said, that when companies do need to select what project they want to, or they can invest on, then they will come up with, but what will generate the most revenue? And the uncertainty that we are in, it's something that we cannot answer that. So we had a conversation with a client last month that he said, but how much is this going to return into my investment? I need to know exactly. And I had to answer him, I'm sorry, but we can tell you how much you can have in return, but I cannot answer you that is an exact science, because there are other variables that can come in, like, a pandemic. There are many things that are out of our control and that we cannot put that into account. And I think that businesses, they have that, oh no, I have to go after this project because its return will be, I don't know, X time of dollars, but you don't know. There are many variables. So I think that it comes to the very first point to when we start talking with companies, that is what success looks like to you. And people do not know that. They do not know where they want to get. And if you don't know where you want to go, any path will serve. So I believe that's the first thing. Companies do not know what they want, why they want it. And so that is why it's so hard for them to choose a project for them to invest on and stick with it.
Yeah, let me just comment on top of what you just said, Marina. Sometimes the persons think they know what is the objective of the company, but it's not aligned. So the management wants something, and the budget for the project is something, and then when you go down the organization and start implementing that, they have a different vision, and much of the times the success for the middle management is not the success for the executives of the company. And this impacts. It's the same thing that we were talking, like, a high level about the political environment, that it's uncertain because there is no continuity on the business, because you start a project and then changes and the priority changes, and then you can, and the customer and the employee in the middle of all that, they don't have like a stable experience. They don't have a stable environment to work. So I think it's almost the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. And the customer experience is just not the first main objective of those companies, and that's why they end up losing customers, having to spend so much money in acquisition when they should be investing into maintaining their loyal customers.
Yeah, I know. I think, and I was on that call, or one of the calls with you, when you were talking about defining success. And I find, and it's always interesting, to your point, that people want to do something. They kind of know that, right? But then when you get to the details, it's kind of like, what represents that you accomplished whatever that is. Whether it's, we have a client that we're working with today that's in the automotive direct-to-consumer selling. So it's kind of an interesting business, right? Very different change in the automotive industry, where the OEMs, the manufacturers, are selling directly to the consumer, and then the retailer is changing their role from being a retail reseller of the product and setting the price to rather part of the delivery and service chain. But what's very interesting is you have a company that's got several different players in the middle and how their process works. But at the end of the day, really the only thing that matters is number of vehicles sold. Like, if they don't sell any vehicles, the rest of all the work they do is irrelevant. And I think it's fascinating when you can get a group that can really be that crisp about what does success look like. And then it's something that's very operationally, in my mind, measurable, versus an outcome metric with something like NPS, which we hear a lot from clients. They go, we want to improve our NPS. And to me, that's great goal, but very difficult to operationalize, because it's an outcome rather than an operational metric. And then you have to understand, what are the drivers that deliver a better NPS, and are you operating against them? So, I mean, I love this conversation, because I think what you're kind of getting at is what we often talk about, which is, okay, what does success look like? Is it immeasurable, right? Is it something we can measure and agree to? Do you have the underlying data that supports that metric? Okay, great. Now we can build an activity around delivering against that metric. And the goal, of course, I think in today's effort, and I've been through this in a couple of cycles in my career, is you've got to be able to come in and offer something that, at least from a goal perspective and a roadmap, is targeted at measurable results within 2 quarters. And, because otherwise people just don't have the weight, right? To your point, JP, it's kind of like, why should I invest in a project if I don't know what I'm going to get out of it? And I should have a very clear picture of what that success looks like, and being able to report out on that to the people who've invested, whether that's the C-suite or that's external investors or whatever that might be. So, but
I would say just, and I know I said I was going to go on mute, but I got to come off, because I think what Marina and João Paulo said was like spot on. So think about what Marina was saying. She was saying that they're trying to make the decisions, right? And they're trying to make the decisions based off of their experience and what has worked in the past. And then she's talking about there's so many different variables that are out there right now. So the problem that I'm seeing in the market is they're trying to make decisions, and they're not assessing the current variables that we're facing right now. And they don't have experience facing all of these variables all at once like they are right now. Yeah. And then that's where I think that leads to not being aligned, like João Paulo was saying, on what is success. And if you're not aligned on what success is, then yeah, you're going to be all over the place, chasing your tails and pointing fingers at, well, João Paulo, you said, we're going to be $1 billion company in 2 quarters, and we're 100 million, that's like legit. Some of the finger point that's going out there, maybe I made up the numbers a little bit, but that's what we're seeing on the market right now. And that's why I think having like mechanisms to be able to objectively measure and define, okay, well, what is success? Let's align to that. And then what is your piece? So Tim, what would be your piece to ensure that we get to success? Marina, what is your piece? João Paulo, what is your piece? And then what is my piece? And what are our combined efforts? What is the hypothesis that we've came to, right? The conclusion of, based off of the data that we've seen on all these variables that are out there, based off of my experience, Tim's experience, who's been doing this a lot longer than all of us combined, by the way, Marina, João Paulo. But like, that's where, and I see that as an opportunity. Like, it's going to get more challenging. All of the metrics that I'm seeing through the forecast of 2024 right now and through 2024 into 25, it's going to get more challenging than it is right now. But I see that as an opportunity for us to align to success and be able to collaborate and come together. I see this as a coming together moment, honestly, for the globe. I think we're closer than, we're accessible. I shouldn't say closer. We're more accessible globally than I think we've ever been. Transform CX, I mean, I don't even know how many countries we're actually operating in right now. I probably shouldn't even admit that in this podcast, but whatever. But it's a good problem to have. And so this is an opportunity for us to learn from each other and figure out how can we align on success and how we can collaborate together to do good and drive good outcomes.
Yep. And again, for us as a business, from a Transform CX spin art, stop doing stupid stuff methodology, this really does kind of fit from a standpoint of helping clients look at how they invest resources, right? Question number one. And are there ways to reallocate resources that are more aligned with the business outcome you're chasing, whether that's growth, retention, profitability. And those are the big things that I think got lost, right? People kind of forgot how to run businesses because money was easy. And I know the pandemic was a big hit for a lot of companies, but today's environment is even worse, right? It's very stormy. And I think companies are, especially publicly traded companies, are doing a lot of knee-jerk reaction to manage the quarterly results that are going to hurt them in the long term. And this will be interesting. And I'm very excited. And, we could probably talk for hours about the evolution of the market in Latin America, but I've been, Marina, you and I particularly have had some pretty amazing conversations with clients, enterprise clients in Sao Paulo, that I think we're very open to new ways of looking at moving projects forward. They like the idea of being more streamlined. I think they like the idea of having that defining success moment because it's a fresh outlook on things. And then, JP, you and I have been talking for years just from a standpoint of some of our casual conversations about, how we're seeing kind of this evolution and the strength of the Latin American market. Like as Andreas was talking earlier, some of it's being driven by labor arbitrage, companies moving services into lower cost labor markets. But a lot of it is also being driven by knowledge workers. Where are the people with the right skill set at the right price point in a world that's much more virtual than it used to be, that I can then leverage to improve my profitability, if nothing else. So I'm just excited to have the opportunity to work with you all in the market, and looking for the opportunity to continue to expand. Anything what you guys would like to say as we close out this morning? And again, just really, really appreciate your time talking with us about this pretty important topic.
No, thank you for the time and the space for us to talk. I think this was a great first conversation. We can do others if you want to invite us. And yes.
Well, it also works the other way. If you ever want to join a podcast, or you have clients or industry leaders that you think would be interesting, we'd love to host them. And we'd even love to, take the opportunity to do some of these in Portuguese. Of course, I'll have limited participation in that, but we can do subtitles and translation. But again, there are amazing thought leaders across all of these markets, and we love to hear from them because that's how we get better.
Thank you, Tim, for the opportunity. Thank you, Andreas. Thank you, Marina, for the conversation. I think that, as we mentioned here, this is just the first conversation that we had, but I think there is a lot of more to explore, and I'm available for further conversations if you want to. We can do even in Portuguese or in English here. Depends on the guests. I think if we expand this, we might need to switch to Portuguese to be able to bring more people from the industry here. But that is it. Thanks, guys.
Oh, thank you, and I think that's a great point. And I think maybe maybe there's an opportunity to actually stand up another channel of podcasts within the marketplace, because again, I think it's a huge market, and I think Brazil is going to be a dominant economic player as they have been in the past, and I think giving the opportunity to ride that wave could be really exciting. Andreas, anything to close with?
No, I think it was a good conversation, and like Tim said, Marina, Jean-Paul, I appreciate the time and the conversation. It's a lot better than Tim and I just talking to each other. So I'm always thankful for that. But yeah, absolutely looking forward to more episodes with you guys.
All right. With that, thank you all, and have a wonderful rest of your week. And thanks again, everybody, for listening to our SDSS podcast. Please follow us on LinkedIn and our YouTube channel. Greatly appreciate the time. Thank you all.